Hey guys, what is up? My name is Kaylee. Welcome back to my channel. It is June, which is Pride Month, and last year, all of you guys probably know him by now, but Common Spence made an original tag called the Pride Flag Book Tag. That's really hard to say. And I remember watching it and thinking it was so creative and clever, and I hadn't joined BookTube yet. So by the time I joined, which was the end of July, we're coming up on 1 year already. That shit is bananas. I decided I'd wait till this year to do it, and here we are. So I am about to do the Pride Flag Book Tag. Just gonna read it straight from my phone because I'm a professional. Question number 1 is Red for Life. A book with a spirited protagonist, totally proud of who they are, someone who gives you life. I'm not gonna lie, I struggled with answering some of these questions. I wanted to keep my answers queer and also stick with my collection. So, what I went with is this behemoth. Iad in The Prior of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon is a queer main character who comes from a land where the Priory Orange Tree is, and while she has to hide who she is for the time being when you start the story off, she's never apologetic for where she came from or the kind of life that she has due to her upbringing, and she is one badass woman. So I would say that she's a perfect example of someone who is spirited and proud of themselves and thus gives me life. I love this book. It isn't as intimidating as it looks. I have thinner looking high fantasies that took much longer to get through, so if you're still putting this off because of its length, don't. The pages are thick, the text is large, the margins are wide. It just looks big, alright? Let Iad give you life. Question number 2 is Orange, which is for healing. A book that made you, as the reader, find a deeper meaning or catharsis in your own life. I think the answer to this will not be shocking at all, but that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think that Evelyn is someone to look up to. I wouldn't call her a, what's the word I'm looking for? A role model. But not only did I love her for her truth and her ability to be blunt about who she was as a person, but what really made me sit back and think about the book when it was done is how unapologetic she was for the choices she made, even if they weren't the right or the best or the kindest choices. At the end of her life, looking back, writing this memoir, she just wanted to tell her story the way it is, the truth, her truth, and she might have had regrets and she might have been sad about some of the ways she affected other people's lives, but in the end, she was okay with everything that she had done and how her life went and where she ended up in the end. And I think that is something to strive for in life. You can't be perfect all the time. You can't make everyone else happy. So you have to make the choices you make and be satisfied with the outcome when it all comes together in the end. Evelyn Hugo is one of those characters that once you know her, you can't forget her, and this book is just one of those ones that you don't really hear many bad things about, so it's probably done and beating a dead horse talking about this book, but it never hurts to talk about Evelyn Hugo one more time. Number 3 is Yellow or Sunshine, a book that fills you with so much joy it could brighten even the darkest day. Now, this is a book that was released this year, very recently. I don't have a copy physically. I did get an ARC, and I gave it 5 stars, and I don't know where you've been living if you haven't heard of it, but that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston. I always stumble over the names. In any case, if you haven't read Red, White, and Royal Blue and you think you want to, you think it's up your alley, please do. it's timely, it's funny, like I laughed out loud, and it takes a lot for me to find a book very funny to the caliber of like laughing legitimately, but I laughed, I cried a little bit. It's not a story that's going to break your heart. It's definitely a very, I wouldn't even call it fluffy, but it is definitely a heartwarming contemporary. It's a love story between a guy that is just realizing that he's bisexual and another guy that is comfortable in his sexuality. And if you like hate to love, if you like quippy, funny, sort of melodramatic conversation, then that's the book for you. I don't see anyone reading it and thinking that it is not a bright spot in the literary world. Number 4 is Green/Nature, and that is a book that is set outside of our world, a reality that's different to our own. And for that I'm going with the graphic novel, and that is Zodiac Star Force, either volumes 1 or 2. They're both fantastic. The art is fantastic. There are queer relationships in it. There's representation, there's fantasy, there's kick-ass women, anything that you can want. In those definitions you'll find in Zodiac Star Force. I think it's one of those sleepers. I only hear some people talk about it, and I don't know if there's ever going to be another one. I've heard nothing more from the authors. Kevin Panetta just put out Bloom, so he's definitely doing work, but I don't know about Star Force work, and it'll break my heart if there's never another one. But this is modern day, except this group of women have superpowers based on zodiac signs. They all have like one big power move. I guess we can call them aliens, but like our world gets portaled. Things portal into our world and they have to fight it. So it's sort of our world, but it's very much different from our world. Number 5 is Blue, which is Peace, a book where one of the characters finds peace with a difficult truth. And I'm gonna go with an entire series because the story arc of this character is one of my favorites, and there's a secondary trilogy coming out this year featuring said character. I'm gonna really fuck out my books doing this. And that is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. In particular, Ronan's story. It's not just about him and his personal life, his love life. It's his entire life that he has to come to terms with throughout the course of these books. And Ronan is one of my favorite characters ever written. The Raven Cycle is one of my favorite series of all time, and his story arc and his coming to terms with the life that he's living and has been living is one of my absolute favorites. And it's a little gut punch-y, but it's worth it. So if you haven't read these, it's very 50-50, I think. The Raven Cycle is a very 50-50 split. Like, people either get it or they don't, but when you get it, you get it. And if you think your reading style is similar to mine and you haven't picked these up yet, but you've thought about it, then I highly, highly recommend it. And if you do, then you have to let me know what you think of Ronan and his story arc. And last but not least is the hardest one for me because it has to do with religion, and I don't read a whole lot of books that are about religion specifically, but Purple Spirit, a book that deals with LGBTQ plus themes and religion. And that was really hard for me because I went and looked at a couple of these tags, and I saw Autobiography by Christina Lauren come up a lot, which isn't a book that I've read, but I do know it's about being a Mormon and being gay or bisexual and having to like deal with those two parts of your life. And there's just nothing else that I have read that I can think of off the top of my head that would fulfill that same kind of answer. So what I decided instead was to just kind of point out books that have very thick religious themes within them, like how the world works, but also have queer characters, but there's not really a cross section between them, such as The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. There is a lot of religion in it in order for the empire to work, and there's also a character who, it's more than hinted at that they're queer, but it's never really explored, so I can't really say that the two coincide. But you get the idea that the reason that they can't straight up come out and be the queer person that they are is due to who they are in society and the belief system of their society. So there's one. There's also my recently purchased Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nunn. Again, it's one of those situations where there's religion within a society because that's how it has to be for the world building. It doesn't necessarily affect the LGBTQ characters in here, but because of their societal standings and who they are, they cannot experience the love that they deserve. And so that's the most I can do to cross in my head. I can't really think of anything else that would intersect more fluidly than that. So those are gonna be my answers just as examples. I'm sure there are a lot more, especially in the contemporary genre, of books that do cross religion and having to deal with LGBTQ plus issues in religion, and I just don't read a whole lot of contemporary these days, so I don't really have anything to recommend. So that's what you're getting from me. Some fantasy that religion is centered in and has characters that identify as somewhere on the queer spectrum and they can't fulfill their own wants and needs due to the society they live in. That's what you're getting from me. So that's it, guys. Happy Pride Month. I hope that you guys are reading some really great books. If you haven't read any of those, every single one of the books that I mentioned in here has at least one queer character somewhere. If you need more specificity, let me know down below and I'll let you know. But that's it for me. If you've liked this video, go ahead and hit like. If you haven't done it and you want to, I tag you because it is Pride Month and it's a perfect time to do this kind of tag, which is why I'm doing it right now. Subscribe if you're new here and want to see more content from me. All my social media links are down below. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Goodreads. Hope you're having a great reading month, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye!